Debt is a weapon. Most people believe it's a weapon used against them, and for their circumstances, they are correct. But for a select few, debt is the most powerful weapon they have for building generational fortunes. The same financial instrument that drowns the working class is the very engine the rich use to accelerate their wealth. Both sides call it debt, but they are speaking two different languages. Where do you stand? By the end of this, the ground might feel less stable. Let's begin in the world where debt is a tool. For the wealthy, debt is never about consumption. It's about acquisition and acceleration. They call it leverage. The entire principle rests on using other people's money, or OPM, to acquire assets that generate more cash than the cost of the loan. The classic example is real estate. Imagine buying a $10 million commercial property. A wealthy investor might put down $2 million and borrow the other $8 million from a bank. The tenant's lease payments cover the mortgage, insurance, property taxes, and maintenance fees. Any money left over is positive cash flow. A $2 million investment now controls a $10 million asset. Over the next 10 years, as inflation pushes rents up and the property value climbs to say $15 million, the investor captures all of that $5 million in appreciation. The bank just gets its loan paid back with interest. The investor gets the equity, the profit. This is the definition of good debt. It's a liability that buys an asset. But it gets more sophisticated. Consider the world of private equity and the leveraged buyout, or LBO. A private equity firm identifies a stable, cash-producing company. They want to buy it for, let's say, $1 billion. They might put up $100 million and borrow the other $900 million. But here's the critical move. The debt is placed on the balance sheet of the company they just bought. The company itself is now responsible for paying back the loan that was used to purchase it. The PE firm uses the company's own cash flow or sells off its assets to service the massive debt. If it works, they can sell the company a few years later for a huge profit. Their $100 million investment might turn into $500 million. They use debt as a crowbar to pry open a company and extract value. That sounds compelling, but there's a legal layer that makes this game even more tilted. The tax code actively subsidizes this strategy. For both the real estate investor and the PE firm, the interest paid on their massive loans is a business expense. It's tax deductible. This directly reduces their taxable income, meaning the government is effectively lowering the cost of their borrowing. But the true masterpiece of financial engineering for the ultra-wealthy is a strategy known as buy, borrow, die. It's how fortunes become dynastic. Imagine a founder with a stock portfolio worth $1 billion. They want $50 million to fund a new venture or simply to live an extravagant lifestyle. If they sold $50 million of stock, they could face a capital gains tax bill of more than $10 million. That's friction. It's a loss of capital. Instead, they go to a private bank. The bank provides a securities-based loan, or SBL, for $50 million at an extremely low interest rate, sometimes below 2%. Their billion-dollar portfolio serves as collateral. The founder gets the $50 million in cash, completely tax-free, because loan proceeds are not income. They live off borrowed money while their main asset, the stock portfolio, continues to appreciate in the background, likely growing at a rate far exceeding the loan's interest. The debt is trivial compared to the asset growth. Now, the final crucial step: die. When the founder passes away, their heirs inherit the billion-dollar portfolio. Due to a tax law called the stepped-up basis, the original cost basis of the assets is reset to the fair market value on the date of death. All the decades of untaxed capital gains are legally erased. Poof. The heirs can then sell $50 million of stock, pay back the loan, and owe zero capital gains tax on that sale. The system allows wealth to be accessed and passed on, all while legally sidestepping the taxes that fund the society it operates in. And yet, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Now we enter the other universe. For the vast majority of people, debt is an entirely different animal. It's a trap, not a tool. It's used for survival and consumption, things that lose value or are gone the moment they're paid for. We're talking about a car loan for a vehicle that depreciates the second it leaves the dealership. We're talking about credit cards used to cover a rent shortfall or an unexpected trip to the emergency room. We're talking about payday loans to bridge the gap until the next insufficient paycheck arrives. This is bad debt. It's a loan untethered from any income-producing asset. There's no tenant paying your credit card bill. There's no appreciating asset backing your car loan. There is only the debt itself, a hole that grows deeper with every interest payment. A simple $500 car repair charged to a credit card with a 24% annual percentage rate can metastasize into a $1,000 burden if you can only afford the minimum payments. The interest compounds relentlessly. The debt exists only to service past emergencies, locking you into a financial present where you are constantly paying for the past with no resources left to build for the future. That sounds bleak, but the very architecture of the financial system makes this reality almost inescapable for many. The core of the problem is asymmetric access and pricing. Why does the billionaire get a loan at 2% while a nurse pays 22% on their Visa card? It comes down to perceived risk, formalized by a single number, your credit score. The bank sees the billionaire's portfolio as perfect collateral. The risk of default is negligible. So, they offer capital at the lowest possible price. The nurse, with a steady but modest income and few assets, is seen as a higher risk. A single missed payment, perhaps due to an illness or a family emergency, can tank their credit score for years. That lower score acts as a brand, marking them as untrustworthy to lenders. To compensate for this perceived risk, lenders charge a much higher interest rate. The less you need money, the cheaper it is. The more desperately you need it, the more you will pay for the privilege of borrowing it. This market logic gives birth to an entire industry of predatory financial products, buy now pay later services, rent-to-own furniture stores, car title loans, and the infamous payday loan, where short-term borrowing can carry an effective APR of 400%. These businesses thrive in credit deserts, areas underserved by traditional banks. They are the only option available. The system that allows a billionaire to borrow against their wealth to avoid taxes is the same system that denies a small business loan to a promising entrepreneur from a low-income neighborhood. Both are called debt. One is a rocket ship, the other is an anchor. And still, many would argue this is just the unfortunate but necessary outcome of a rational market. The personal responsibility argument is seductive in its simplicity. Live within your means. Don't spend more than you earn. Save for a rainy day. This is sound advice delivered from the safety of a harbor. But what does it mean when your means are insufficient for life itself? For decades, wages for most workers have been stagnant, while the costs of the basic pillars of a stable life, housing, healthcare, and education, have skyrocketed. For millions, debt is a brute necessity. The decision is between a high-interest loan and a child going without medicine. The choice is between a credit card balance and an eviction notice. To frame this as a failure of individual discipline is to willfully ignore the economic vice that creates the choice in the first place. The illusion of choice is a powerful tool for blaming the victim. The game is already rigged. Then comes inflation. Inflation is debt's silent partner, but it picks sides. For the wealthy property owner who borrowed $8 million, inflation is a windfall. Their asset, the building, inflates in value. The rents they charge go up, but their mortgage payment is fixed. They're repaying their debt with future dollars that are worth less than the ones they borrowed. Inflation literally erodes the real value of their debt for them. For the family with $10,000 in credit card debt, inflation is a slow-motion disaster. The price of their gas and groceries goes up, but their pay does not. Their disposable income evaporates. That fixed debt payment now consumes a larger and larger share of their shrinking budget. The same economic tide lifts the yacht and swamps the rowboat. So what is the fundamental dividing line? It is collateral. Debt for the wealthy is asset-backed. Debt for the poor and middle class is backed by their future labor. When a rich person borrows, the implicit agreement is, if I default, you can take my stocks, my properties, my other assets. It is a transaction between portfolios. When a poor person borrows, the agreement is, if I default, you can ruin my credit score, garnish my future wages, and pursue me relentlessly for payment. It is a claim on a human being's time and energy for years to come. One is a calculated risk with assets. The other is a desperate pledge of one's own future. Financial literacy campaigns, while well-intentioned, often miss this point entirely. You can teach a person how to budget, you can warn them about compound interest, but you cannot teach them how to conjure $1 million stock portfolio to use as collateral. You cannot budget your way out of a system that pays you a poverty wage. The issue is structural. The defenders of this system will argue that it is a model of efficiency. The market, they say, correctly allocates capital by pricing risk. A person with a history of financial instability is a higher risk. To force banks to lend to them at low rates would be to invite another financial crisis. It would subsidize poor decisions and create moral hazard, where people take risks knowing they won't bear the full consequences. This logic is cold, clinical, and internally consistent. It treats finance as a pure science, detached from its messy human consequences. But follow this logic to its conclusion. If the system is functioning perfectly as designed, then it is designed to produce these outcomes. It means that predatory lending is a feature, not a bug. It means the stress, the shame, and the hopelessness of inescapable debt are the necessary outputs of an efficient risk management machine. The machine is working. We are just horrified by what it's building. So we are left with two parallel realities, sharing the same vocabulary but with opposite meanings. In one, debt is a sophisticated instrument of leverage and tax minimization, a key that unlocks exponential growth and preserves dynastic wealth. It's a cool, calculated game played by people who will never feel its bite. In the other reality, debt is a blunt instrument of survival, a trap of compounding interest, predatory fees, and wage garnishment that serves as a life sentence for the crime of being poor in a rich country. The same word, the same financial architecture. Two completely different worlds. Where is the line between a financial tool and a social weapon? Is the problem the debt itself, or is it the profoundly different set of rules for those at the top and everyone else? And if we decide the system is the problem, who has the power and the will to change the rules of a game that produces so many winners?